Ivy, with all of the campaigns around sexual violence over the years and the challenges faced with getting the message across, what does Ein's story and the PE checks on girls tell us about where we're at in Malaysia with rape culture and violence against women?
I think these stories that came out recently by young people, and I want to emphasize young women using their social media tools, just goes to show that obviously rape culture is alive and well, in this country. But I also like to think that because of the different campaigns over the years, and I've been working on this for over 30 years. You've been working on it also, Asha. All of us have been working on this for over 30 years. And because of that, that is why I think now it's a lot more visible. Now, what is interesting is that rather than saying, oh no, here we go again, and of course, all these kind of stories have come out over the years, except right now, I really believe that we're having a national conversation. Something about what Ayn did, and then the period spot checks also, all of that came together. It was like a converge, like a collusion.
Like a perfect storm, right?
Yeah, collusion of sort. And what is interesting for me, I mean, my hair stands on end when I think about this, young women. Asha is not the old Faridadis.
I know, like holding signs anymore. Yeah,
exactly. But the young women who are using the language of feminism, who are using the language of activism, and saying this happened to us. And I just want to honor these people. I think they're so brave, and I like to think it's because there's a vibrant women's movement that allows that space, and of course, social media. Mm-hmm. People decry and say, oh my God, everybody's on the phone and people are not bothered. But really, these young women are using social media, using their phone in a very effective way. So yeah, life and well, rape culture, but you know what? There's a national conversation going on now. Maybe, just maybe, the adults will start listening.
I love how you're saying this about the fact that they're mobilizing the platforms available now to get this message out and fast, and everything, is rolling along, and a bigger noise. But if we talk about sort of where we're still at, the problem that still exists, that's being highlighted now, what would you say sort of the root cause is for that still existing at this level here now?
The root causes, well, at the end of the day, the word patriarchy is really important. Gender inequality, toxic masculinity. And when I say toxic masculinity, I don't mean toxic men. I mean toxic behaviors by men. When I say gender inequality, at the end of the day, if we look at how girls are harassed, okay, how boys are also harassed, because anything that is feminine is considered weak.
Right.
So girls' bodies are, the teachers can go around and grope the girls' bodies to see whether they've got their period. Young boys or men or boys who are considered weak, feminine. So anything in opposition to what defines masculinity, inverted commas, what is feminine, what is weak, is considered weak. So I think we need to address that there is a culture of toxic masculinity across society. But let's start with the schools, because obviously in the workplace too, there is sexual harassment.
Yep.
In public space also, there's sexual harassment, right? Yeah. But in the schools, what is interesting about is that we have avoided talking about the schools. I think the authorities have, every time it happens when a young boy is sexually assaulted or beaten because he's seen as being weak and feminine, we think it's a one-off incident. But now, as more and more people are sharing the stories, and in this particular Instagram post by Putri, it shows that it's about 300, 400 cases. So I think at the end of the day, the bottom line is we're not addressing the unequal power between men and women, between the weak and strong. And in this case, I dare say, because teachers have the power, right? The teachers have the power in schools, and we need to also democratize schools. We need to be able to create a space where the power is not all in the authorities, but the power also lies with the girls, with the students, with the boys.
Right. And what would you say, if it was possible to say at all, in your opinion, the biggest obstacle to this narrative changing?
I mean, there are so many obstacles, right? I mean, I think the biggest obstacle is there's no political will. There is this, there is a reluctance to believe these stories. There is this belief that boys will be boys, what to do. Come on, even when you talk to adults, they say, oh, that happened to me, but we just, shrugged our shoulders and walked away from it.
So the trivializing is sort of normalizing it.
Like just, even when it comes to boys who are assaulted, bullied, we tell the boys, come on, be more manly.
Man up, yeah.
Be, man up, don't be weak. But when you say toxic masculinity, or the kind of masculinity that's been perpetuated there, is that a man has to be powerful, uses sex as a competition. I have to show that I've got many girlfriends. I can tease women. I can proudly say that I've seen a naked picture of a woman. All of these kind of behaviors must be addressed. I think the biggest obstacle really is the stubbornness, the lack of political will to address that. We must try and see, we must not even try, we must look at the syllabus. We must look at the re-education, not only of teachers, but the schools. For instance, Asha, it happens all over the world. This is not peculiar to Malaysia, right? So in Australia, there was a video of a group of young boys in some kind of a public bus or some tram, and they were singing this terrible sexist song, kind of like a sailor song, and it went viral.
Right.
The immediate reaction by the headmasters, and I emphasize masters, because they were male headmasters, was to say, there's a problem in our schools. Let's try and bring in a syllabus. There was immediate change. There was to re-look at the way what we're teaching. And now it is mandatory. Schools in Australia, in many parts of the world, address mutual respect, address gender equality, address bullying. Because if we look at the larger picture, this is all a form of bullying, except it's not just by words. Some of it actually escalates into sexual assault.
Yeah. So, Ivy, where do we start? That there's so much backlash against a child for speaking out against adults. And if adults are running the system, who do we look to then to change things in order to make school a safer place?
I really believe over the 40 years of work I've been doing this, there are some good adults out there, including educators. If we look at the stories in this Instagram, excuse me.
Can you establish Putri's? Are you talking about Putri's?
I know. I have to find out the name of the.
Yeah.
Let's do that, because so that we establish this something.
Yeah. Okay. Ask again.
Okay. So, Ivy, where do we start when there's so much backlash against a child for speaking out against adults? If adults are running the system, who do we look to change things to make school a safer place?
At the end of the day, it has to be the adults. It has to be the educators. It also has to be the parents. I think parents must also step up now and say, I want you, the educators, to make the school safe. If we look at the Instagram post, Instagram channel called Save the Schools MY by Putri, please go and have a search, go and follow the Instagram post. There are adults there, some teachers there who actually stepped up and tried to protect the child. So there are teachers also who are very disturbed by this and they want to do something. So I think the adults all need to put pressure on the Ministry of Education, especially parents. I think parents have a big stake here.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I think we need to, the media, people like you have also to put the pressure on. We have to make sure that there's a national conversation. We need to give the space to young women to speak their truth. We need to make sure that we believe them and encourage them, because I think there's no stopping these young girls. Even if adults are not listening to them, they are going to keep at it. I think there's a determination here that I've never seen before. And it's coming from the rakyat, so to speak. I think I'm not exaggerating when I say that every day people are posting stories in this Instagram, channel.
Yeah.
And also, I think that's another thing to see here is that I think social media has given people the power to actually voice out, because before that, the silent majority couldn't say anything because there's a fear of being ostracized or whatnot. And I think there are more teachers and more adults than we think are actually
On
uh,
our
on our side. Yeah,
Yes.
on
exactly.
our
Right.
side, of course
Yeah.
there are. Of course there are. Because I mean, everybody has had a nasty school experience, but a lot of us also have got good school experiences and
Yeah.
good teachers.
Amazing teachers. Yeah.
Amazing teachers. And I think this is an opportunity for me to also say thank you to the teachers. But at the same time, I'm saying that the voices of the teachers with negative attitudes and the leaders with economic. Let me start again. I want to believe that there are many teachers out there, because I think all of us have got amazing stories about our own school experiences of great teachers.
Yeah.
But right now, it appears as if the adults with the negative voices are louder. It just appears so, And the same way we are giving freedom to young people to speak up, we need to give freedom to adults, teachers, principals, headmistresses, educators, and especially parents to also, put their hands up and say, look, we must do something about it.
Yeah. It would be great to see some of the educators from different institutions, actually sort of stand up and say something too. I think, in my opinion, that's actually missing in this sort of mix of, sort of authority and government and schools and stuff is not external people coming going, look, let me help you. Let's have this conversation. Let's broaden it, because, this is unacceptable. We were speaking to Ein's parents this week, and Ein's mother mentioned that one of the biggest shocks to her was actually trying to follow protocol and going to speak to the school counselor, or asking Ein to go speak to the school counselor, who basically had said to Ein, oh, come on, don't make such a big sort of fuss. That sort of ilk of, response to her and her problem. In your opinion, why aren't things different there? What's missing in the training of the adults who will have children in their care? Not just the teachers, but these are, counselors there who are supposed to be trained differently. What's missing that needs to be put into place that's really going to actually help change things within the system?
Right. That's a very good question. What is missing in the training of the counselors? What is missing in the training of teachers? Okay. What is missing in the syllabuses? It's the gender component. We go back to the root problem being gender inequality, patriarchy, sexism, sexist behaviors, because we're not addressing the issue of how unequal girls and boys are, how unequal strong men versus so-called weak men. There is this incredible inequality, and we're not addressing that phenomena. And it's not just, it's a system of beliefs. It spells out in our textbooks. It is in our teaching styles. It's the way even the school is ordered. There's a hierarchy in schools. A lot of teachers may want to speak up, but we don't have a culture where we encourage, teachers to speak up, because the moment you speak up, you're seen as you're going against the principle.
The system, right?
This whole system. So, I really believe that what we need to do is just free people to able to speak up. And I know over the years, the women's groups, including myself, I have actually given samples of syllabuses. It began many, many years ago, Asha, with this, let's try and change the textbook. So we were going into the ministry and saying, hey, look at these pictures. It always shows a woman sweeping the floor, cooking, cleaning. We need to change the images. And the Ministry of Women was really interested, and they tried to change, and they have in fact changed some of the textbooks. But what is happening is their mindset has not changed.
Right.
We are really not addressing the mindset of teachers, the people who are conducting these classes, and for that matter, all of society. I mean, even in the workplace, your bosses, your colleagues, and all that. Mindset change is very, very, very difficult.
Actually, I was about to chime in on that, because that means technically, culturally, it all starts from home.
But home is also influenced by media, by what's happening outside, by the kind of movies we see, the kind of talk shows we are listening to, the advertisements. So you're not isolated. I know of parents who say, you know, why is my child coming back and saying, oh no, pink is for girls and blue is for boys? Where did he pick this up from? Because I have taught him differently.
Yeah.
They're picking it up from schools. They're picking it up from advertisements. They're picking it up from outside.
From shops, right? You know, the chocolate eggs you can get, you know, chocolate sweeties that are made, you know, in different colors for boys and girls. You're right. It's just, you know.
Yeah.
So this is not an isolated project. This has to be a multiple, you know, multi-pronged project. I think we need to address the fact and own up to the fact that we do not respect anything which is feminine. We do not have respect for girls, women, and when I say feminine, I mean even as a man, if you exhibit feminine traits, immediately you're seen as weak.
You know, I'm hearing you say that, and I can imagine, because I know many people like this who kind of consider themselves woke enough, right, to just go, well, of course I've got respect for women, but in my observation of their behavior and the way they communicate and all the rest of it, there is still a lot of stuff happening there that is not congruent with what they're saying. So you've got people sort of on that spectrum and then sort of outrightly sort of have no sort of clue about this. What is a way for anyone to kind of just stop and kind of go, how, you know, am I part of the problem? Like, am I thinking wrong? Is my mindset still stuck in an old way? You know, how am I thinking that's different from these new pictures in the textbook that I need to be aware of myself?
Yeah, I think most of us, when we hear a sexist joke, so that teacher allegedly who said, you know, we want to rape a girl, make sure she's above 18, and everybody laugh, 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 titter. And I'm sure some of students must have cringed. And you might even hear this in a workplace situation. You might hear it in a restaurant among your friends. And some of us cringe inside, but we do not speak up, right? So the first thing is that speak up. You have to say, hey, that's really not cool. You know, you got to find the language to say that sexist jokes are not on. The trouble is, Asha, we listen to this sexist joke, we kind of make a face, but we don't say anything more. We have to stand up. And I really don't know how do we empower adults to stop other people from saying this? And that's why I think another group of people that have to own up to this are men. You know, there are many movements all over the world, you know, Be Better Men, the White Ribbon Campaign, you know, where men have owned this issue and say, you know, we need to figure out how to talk among ourselves and say, this is not on, this kind of behavior is not acceptable. You know, we can shout till the cows come home. We keep saying, men behave yourselves, but men must talk to men too.
Yeah.
And that is a big missing component, because there's no men's movement in this country to date. There's been faltering steps. Some men get together once a year, they sign on to a pledge and everything, oh please, you know, all that is like a one-off event. It has to be sustained.